I'm Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here with Liz Franklin. She's an author, speaker, motivator. Hello, Liz. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Can you kick us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background, your journey to motivation?
I can. Well, actually, what started all this was I almost died when I was 28. It's a little motivator to live. And I decided I was going to live every day like it was my last. I was really good at administrative things and time management and all those things. And so put that together, and I'm a financial planner at that point. And my CEO asked me to do a teaching for the training for the people there. And so I did, and I did a thing about time priorities and how to manage, not just how to fit more things into your schedule, but how to actually manage our time, how to prioritize it, how to really get the most out of what you have. And we walked out of that office, and I was so excited. I had so much fun. And he said, Liz, you're just touching that tip of the iceberg. And then he nicknamed me Lizzie Ziegler from then on. And so that's where it all started. I wrote a book about, a year and a half later about this. And about 5 years later, I only spoke to adults at first. About 5 years later, I'm doing a mom's workshop, 3-hour mom's workshop. My 6-year-old daughter is sitting in the back, just, with me. I homeschooled, and she's back there doing her little work and things. And she picked up on one little concept, that everyone has a special talent. Everybody has something that's just them, and nobody else has it. It doesn't go through anybody else's past or anybody else's perspective or their gifts. Everybody has this special thing that's them. And so she starts writing a children's book and illustrating it. And when I get finished, she has the whole children's books finished that we actually published.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness, children can get this too. And it was eye-opening. And so that's what started working with younger people besides just adults, because I realized that these business principles and success principles, they're not just for adults. Kids can get it too. And they can do great things long before they get through college and grow up and do what everybody else tells them they can't do until they grow up. So that's why I do what I do.
That's awesome. And so when you're talking about, empowering children, over the years, have you seen any recurring themes among our young people? What kind of trends are you seeing? Where is there a gap, or, what do we need?
When I first started doing this, when I wrote the first book, Time for Kids and Teens, I go back and read it, and it's so antiquated because it was before the iPhones and the iPads and all these things just.
Right.
And then I was talking about what a monster time was to them and how all these distractions were keeping them from being all they could be. And now it is just like multiplied 1,000,000 times, from what they had back then. I watch young people and I'm amazed because they don't even know how to communicate with one another. My grandson gets in the car with me, with his friend. You know what they do? They pull out their phones and they watch silly, memes and YouTubes with each other rather than talking with each other.
Yeah.
And they don't have time. They just sit and do this stuff endlessly unless there's somebody monitoring it. Right. And they don't have time to find out this greatness that's inside them.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is I believe at a young age, you learn about creativity, right? That's when you're creative because you're open. You don't have limits on what you're doing. So it is very important at a young age to have them communicate and be able to express that. I have twins, and actually they'll sit there and text each other, and they're sitting on couches opposite of each other, and they're 7 years old, and they're texting each other on their iPads. And I'm like, you guys could literally talk to each other or play with each other or, and they'll just communicate that way. It's crazy.
It is. And it's something it's breaking down a communication in the society. And it's also breaking down, and not only that, but schools have gone, at least in America, have gone more to rote memorization. They learn something to spit it out onto a test. They've cut out science fairs where, some of the greatest science knowledge my daughter got was doing science fairs where you have to get into a subject and study it and create posters and create ideas that are from just out of the air. They don't do those things anymore. And so they're taking away, even in the educational system, their ability to create and think and go beyond the boxes and do something bigger than what's out there.
So I have something related to that. My son is 5; he's in kindergarten, and it kind of ties into our current situation, even with the remote learning that we're putting in place here during this time. But as I watch, there's all this technology in the classroom, and they have iPads that they do learning on, and then they send home assignments that need to be done. I mean, there's still written assignments, but assignments that need to be completed on a tablet. And I know every child learns differently, and some people that might work, but I feel like it's diluting that hands-on learning, and that's that's me. I prefer the old school pen and paper and a notebook. I still have stacks of notebooks here. I don't like to download apps on my phone, and I just, that's me. But I feel like, he's missing out on something because he's being forced, in essence, to use all of this technology in the classroom. I mean, what are your thoughts on technology in the classroom?
Wow, you just opened up something I didn't even think about, because I talk to college students about, you can go in class, take your laptop and just type everything the professor says. But did you know that conceptual knowledge, you're going to lose about 30% of it by not writing it down, because it goes into your brain, into another section of your brain to process that information, and then another part of your brain actually does the handwriting. And so you get different areas of your brain activated that causes that information to get inside you. So these concepts actually become inner working inside you. Young people are losing that because if you're just typing it, oh my goodness.
Do you believe like just taking notes, right? So just doing that note piece is actually, that's the rote piece, right? You're just retyping what you heard. You're not conceptualizing it. And do you believe that's what causes a lot of the roteness in their learning?
It does. Well, no. Let me correct that just a little bit. I've read some research recently. I don't have the reference here, but in some research recently, they found that if it's something that's just factual, like if you're learning history dates of something,
right,
or a mathematical, idea,
right, like your multiplication tables,
right,
we all
right,
learned to
right.
do
Something like that. Typing that, just take your laptop and type away, because it's not going to affect your ability to retain it. But the concepts, math is concepts.
Math
is not just numbers, it's conceptual. And I homeschooled, so I built on concept upon concept upon concept. So everything just was a layer of something new, and they're not getting the concepts behind what they're learning. So if you don't get the concepts, you don't get the thinking patterns that were behind it.
And I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I'm thinking about a lot of parents.
Usually I'm the one that's off.
Yeah, usually it's Brian, but usually I stick to my notes. But I'm just thinking about what we're all going through, and what I'm seeing is and for me personally, I'm seeing, how am I supposed to, and because you mentioned homeschooling as well, I thought this might be timely and valuable for the audience, because how are we supposed to teach our children if we weren't equipped, and even if this might be only a month, let's say, hopefully just a month, let's just say on a good outcome, how are we supposed to make sure they don't fall behind if we're not really equipped as parents, or the children don't listen to us? Is there something that moms, and I'm seeing a lot of moms struggling with this, oh my goodness, it's day 3 of homeschooling, how do these teachers do it, and they're losing it. I'm losing it, and my mom's got my son right now. She's losing it. So, how do you have any advice for parents during this time as we're dealing with what's going on and trying to keep our children on a schedule and educate them?
What I did was I sat down when she was younger, I would actually sit down with her, and we would actually just kind of work through it together. And it was a very good bonding time. This is an amazing time to bond with your child in a way you never have. This morning, and this is a tangent, but I'll come back to it. This morning, my post on LinkedIn was, what is forged in the fire will stand strong through time. There's a forging with your children, with one another, with families, with the nations, with people from all over the world. That's happening right now. That's like none other. This generation that's coming through this, you're going to be amazing because of going through this. As far as homeschooling, don't worry about not knowing what you're doing. That's the big, seriously, sit down and learn it with them. It's amazing. You can do that because when you're sitting down learning it, you're learning it the way that they've got to hear it. And so then you can just translate what you're learning to them. I would sit up 2-3 hours at night studying high school trig and calculus and physics and things so I could the next day teach it because I hadn't studied it in years and I had to go back and get those concepts and things. But by doing it fresh, it was a good thing because I could teach it fresh. And so you really are at an advantage to teachers that are doing the same old thing they've done over and over and over. And you can bring fun things into it. You can't go on field trips, but you can pull up things online and show them these places and things that are going on and do little science experiments at home that validate what they're learning. So you can bring this element that I'm talking about back into their schooling. You just get creative.
It's interesting you say that because, my daughter's in first grade, and the way they do math is a completely different way than we learned how to do math. So I had to re-educate myself on, okay, this is the way the teacher wants them to do it, even though I know this plus this is this, and it was very different. Maybe we learned counting our fingers or with blocks or whatever, right? And they have all these other really complicated ways of looking at problems in multiple directions, but so it's interesting. You're right. You have to be open to relearning how they're being taught now versus how maybe you were when you were a kid, and I agree with you on science because especially one of my daughters, every time there's some sort of concept, I'm like, okay, let's go prove it. You know what I mean? Let's go see how it actually works, and it's amazing for them because you see it really light up and trigger in them when they get excited about it when they can see it firsthand.
They do. And there are independent science fairs out there. I would encourage parents outside of school to find what's in your area and help your child do this.
Yeah, we Nicola and I love Maker's Fair.
My daughter, when she was a junior in high school, had the Joplin tornado had just happened. And people, when she listened to this, she'd always studied weather. She learned to read at 3, reading the scroll on the Weather Channel. She came in and she's like, oh my goodness, Mom. And I came in and I was like, what? And she's like, look, it's cloudy with a chance of snow. This is the first line she ever read. But she saw this Joplin tornado thing and people said they had plenty of warning, but they didn't take heed to it. She decided as a junior in high school, she was going to create a new warning way to communicate better. And she did. And it was the what, when, where, and what's going to happen, where it is, who it's going to affect, and what to do. Well, we think that way, what, when, where, and how. When she tested this, instead of getting a 65 or so % response rate, she got 92% response rate. People saying they would take shelter immediately. She won all kinds of national awards for it. And look at the system they use today. They use her system. The junior in high school. So these kids can not only have fun learning science, they can change the world.
That sure beats the Oreo cookie dunker I made in grandma's school. Although that does exist now too, I will say that.
Very good, awesome.
Look, everyone comes into their own at their own time. So
my priorities were cookies. When you dump the cookie in the milk, your finger gets wet. So how not to drop your cookie?
Brilliant. You should have patented the idea back then. So your parents,
Mom said that
behind you, patented that idea. And that's another thing with parents that on one of your questions, you asked, how can you stand behind students? I go out and get them all fired up and they find these ideas they can do and things, but they need the parents to get behind it. I'm not going to always be there to say, okay, well, look, here's somebody that draws pictures real well. Here's somebody that writes books. Let's put them together and let's create a book, and then go put it into the format they need to and run it through Amazon and get it published for them. So parents need to watch for this greatness in their children.
So besides the inspiration, right? Besides the inspiration we could cause, is it also, and it seems like what you're saying is it's also giving, like you said, publishing it on Amazon. I'm gonna use that as an example. It's giving them the practical knowledge, right? Also, not just the inspiration. It's like, here's how you implement your idea to get it out there. It's because it's great to come up with a concept. Do you know what I mean? Or something creative. But if you're not sharing it, like with your daughter, with the the weather, right? If you're not sharing it, no one's seeing it. So, and it's as a parent or as someone inspiring them, it's to give them the practicality too, not just the inspiration.
Exactly. She, another example was when she was 6, she saw this ad about hungry children. She's like, I want to do something. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? She's like, she started collecting change. She would go through the neighborhood and collect change. Well, I had to go find an orphanage in India. I mean, a legitimate one. She couldn't do that. She was too young.
Right.
She had to take that change that she collected and put it into the bank, write a check, and mail it off. She couldn't handle that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But she fed an orphanage for 2 years.
Wow.
And she was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way parents can cause this greatness to come alive in children, and not just usually we just like, oh, well, that's great. One day when you grow up, you can go go do humanitarian things, because that's how we answer them.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest obstacle that I have in talking with children is they've been told they can't do anything till they grow up.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think.
What is your response to that? How do you personally deal with that when you hear that?
I give them examples. of the past.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that? Was it John Quincy Adams was the ambassador to Catherine the Great from America when he was 14 years old. 14. Mozart at 5 started doing music and would go into before royalties and perform as a small child. And then I use personal examples of kids that I've worked with that have changed the world with their ideas at a young age. And so they have to see that kids can do it. They have to believe they can. And I have all the faith in the world to feed into all of them. I promise you. You can't get around me without picking that up. And I love kids and teenagers and youth. And as I've been on LinkedIn, these young professionals are like just swarming me now, because, and so I'm evolving into teaching them too, because they need it too. But there's so many things that haven't been given to young people, like time concepts.
Yeah.
You go into college and they throw you a planner and they give you one little teaching on how to manage time, and they expect you to do it. Well, if you went into a calculus class in college and you'd never had pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, trig, and pre-calc, you would fail. Yeah. And these guys fail. And that's why I'm writing a new book, Time to Thrive / Taming the Time Monster, for college students, because 33% fail because of that, but they've never had an opportunity to know it. Mm-hmm. At young ages, kids can learn how to manage time and how to prioritize time. And so, anyway, that's part of the empowerment.
Yeah. And I have this, sorry, before Nicolette. So I have this crazy theory, like time is the only asset that matters. Like I truly believe that, because it's the only thing you're ever limited in your life. And if you're wasting it or not using it effectively or not able to manage it, as you're saying, it becomes very, very hard to get things done sometimes.
It does. And I've done a lot of study to find out things like the why behind, like goals. Well, did you know that writing a to-do list, all my life, you go to a time management seminar, they teach you to do a to-do list and set goals and do all things. Those are wonderful things, but I want to give them the why. Right. Well, if you write a to-do list and you set goals, every time you check something off and you accomplish it, your brain triggers this oxytocin. This is just like, or it's like you get these feel-good things going on in your brain, and it loves it. It gets excited to reach a goal. So a to-do list actually empowers you. And then because it likes that feeling so much, it goes to work to figure out the pattern you went through to get to that success, so it can happen easier the next time. So you literally get addicted to success by doing that. Well, when you put to-do lists and goals that way, it changes your perspective of doing them, because you understand that, well, it might be a little hard to do this at first, but man, this is going to actually empower me to get to where I want to go. And so,
yeah, Nicolette could be a case study for that. I don't know.
I will work with you, Nicolette.
Well, and
Nicolette,
actually, what were
I
you
have
gonna
to
say?
get things checked off my to-do list. Like she's very driven by that, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I need no list. And actually, what's crazy is that I get very stressed out when there's a list that I know is never going to go away. Like it's an ongoing
Mhm.
task. So if I can't clear anything out, I become very stressed. But I was thinking about the why behind, and that's something that I emphasize a lot with my child. And this kind of piggybacks on something I wanted to ask you about, the children today. And some might say that they're selfish and they're self-involved, and even at a young age. I mean, I understand they're children, but they're not seeing this bigger picture, and that's partially our fault for not really making them aware of that. But some children like mine, they're very hard, they're difficult to get through to, and I find that explaining that why, because there are children who are going to take what you say and believe you because you're the parent and that's it, and that's great. And I wish I had one of those. But then there are children who are going to challenge you every step of the way. And the only way to really get through is to explain, this is the why, even at a young age. We don't walk across the street because we could get hit by a car. We could, but that's not enough. We could then go to the hospital and have a broken leg and then, potentially die and, never see mom again. Like sometimes it has to go there, but that why, and then it's okay. All right. I got that. I don't want that end result. So maybe I'll wait and hold your hand, So I think that why is really important, as you mentioned. But, what about those children who aren't as open as others to the concepts that you talk about? What is there a strategy? You're laughing.
I'm laughing because I love those kind of kids.
Really?
Those are our future world changers because they do ask the whys, because they do want to know the reasons, because they're wanting to process things on a deeper level than just a rote, okay, yes, and obeying authority is wonderful. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but don't be frustrated with
Mhm.
kids like that. Take the time to explain it because you're empowering them for greatness later. Because that very thing that's a struggle now as a parent is going to be an amazing asset as they begin to ask those questions in the world.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, kids, they're questioning things or thinking about it. They're thinking through the process, I mean, you gotta border it. Because when I was a kid, I questioned a lot, but I was also pretty stupid sometimes. Like my mom's like, don't touch the stove. It's, the electric range. It's hot. I'm like, I don't see no fire.
Don't
Put my
try.
hand on it. Had a ring on my hand for 3 years, right? Then my dad, back in the 80s, cars had the cigarette lighters in them. My dad's like, don't touch it. It gets hot. I'm like, burn my finger, but I needed to understand it for myself. Is it really hot? I don't see fire on it,
And
But
those kind of children, you have to, you can do it in a controlled environment,
yeah,
but turn it on, take their hand and lift it a little bit of it so they actually feel it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I
they
didn't
know
say I
that
was the
what you're
smartest
saying
kid.
actually. My son, he decided to find out what was behind an electric plug and stuck something in it. So I understand this.
Yeah, yeah. I've done stuff like that. I like electronics and things like that. I've pulled apart more things than I should have. But also, like for instance, I spilled a Red Bull in my MacBook a year ago, but it gave me the ability to fix it. Do you know what I mean? When even Apple said, no, you got to throw it away. So kids that are curious, they learn a lot by that curiosity.
Mm-hmm. And something I would say also for this generation, because one of the questions, that everyone asks is, how do you change what's going on with this generation?
Mm-hmm.
And how they view older people and receiving from them. And, I think it's just like one of the things I encourage is mentoring, finding someone to mentor. I always tell young people, I want you to climb on my shoulders and go higher than I could ever go. I want them to see me as a bridge to where they want to go. And when they begin to view older people that way, they respect them in a different way, because suddenly it's not just, oh, they're telling me what to do, but they're empowering me to be what I want to be. And it totally changes that perspective. And so that's why I have such faith in this generation.
So tell us, if you had a few tips for parents and non-parents alike, just those who are older than our youth, what can we be doing as a society to empower this generation on a day-to-day basis?
First of all, we have a time. We don't have 24 hours in a day. Okay. Parents need to realize this. Okay. Have you ever watched the program Tiny House, where they're going from a big house into this little tiny thing, and they have to look for everything that really, really matters to them in this tiny house. Mm-hmm. This is how I teach time priorities to children that can't even read yet. Mm-hmm. We take 24 blocks, mm-hmm. and we start taking out, okay, 8 to 10 blocks for sleeping, 8 hours for school, a couple of hours for eating and bath time and getting, and then they have this like 4 blocks left in their day. And I'm like, you can't sign up for every sport and everything in the world, mm-hmm. and fit in this little tiny house you have here. Mm-hmm. This is really where you live. In this little tiny part of time, you've got beyond the necessities. But parents need to realize that too. And they need to find communication time every day. One of the last things I always did with my children was, when they would go to bed, we'd sit down and talk. Mm-hmm. And it became an amazing time of finding out things I would never have found that was going on in their lives, but also finding out things about them that I didn't know. And I would listen, perk up your ears and listen. Watch what they're naturally good at. If my son was creative, so he would get bored. He was very, very smart. He was dyslexic also. And so I found ways to empower him. I took a pantry and turned it into a creative closet. Mm-hmm. And so, he would go and I would go get wooden blocks at where they made furniture and all these different things. So he had all these things that he could create, because that was a place for him to go and actually expand his knowledge on his own. So empower them, communicate with them. And then, like I said earlier, when you do find something they're good at, first of all, don't discount it and say it's not good enough. Mm-hmm. Ever. And even when you're talking to them, for parents, correct the behavior or even praise the behavior, but don't do it in a way that attaches it to them as so that you're bad or you're good, but the work that you're doing, I'm really proud of how much work you've put into this and how much thought you've put behind it, because that causes them to want to get that praise again. But
so even the praise portion,
excuse me?
Even the praising portion. So,
yes.
I know it makes sense. You're not bad. Your action is bad, but even the praise, we should kind of disconnect from them.
I praise good behavior. I praise what has caused them to do what they did, mm-hmm. because then I'm reinforcing the reason behind it, not just one specific thing that happened. It suddenly becomes a whole concept of making the right choices, or thinking the right way, or using your creativity, or using your manners the right way, or being respectful to someone, or whatever it is. It suddenly becomes a concept, mm-hmm. that they get inside them, that it's the concept that gets the praise, and that becomes ingrained in them rather than just a one-time situation. So, mm-hmm.
I understand
my viewpoint on it anyway.
So Liz, you do some workshop. How do you work with the children? Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do?
I can. Well, first of all, I started with an adult book. Then I did a college workshop, and then did mom homeschooling because they were going crazy. So they needed workshops. Maybe I need to do a free Skype one for all the moms out there learning to be homeschoolers.
Yeah, you should do a webinar for us.
I
get a lot of attendance.
And then I was asked to do high schoolers, And then they were like, well, what about our middle schoolers? And so I just kept going back earlier. So for the very young, like K to second grade, I have this little picture book series called The Time Doctor. And he goes in and fixes their time from their time monsters come after them, where they, always losing things, or they don't know how to organize, or they're always late or whatever. Those are monsters that we have to overcome. The Time Doctor comes and gives them prescription to fix it. And so they can understand these little concepts at that age. And I go in and talk in elementary schools about this. Your older ones actually do workshops, time for kids and teens workshops, where or just speaking events. And I am evolving. Right now I am not who I used to be 6 months ago because of LinkedIn. Everything has changed. The whole world is asking me to come help their children right now. And I'm trying to evolve into what I'm going to be instead of what I used to be. And even this book, this Time for Kids and Teens book, it was written for homeschool moms to be able to take it and teach time concepts to their kids right inside their homes. And it's not just for homeschool moms. Anyone can use it, but it teaches these basic things right to them, so it empowers them. And then there's a time for high school, and then I'm really excited about doing this college series because it's going to be transformational. And I do plan to do a lot more speaking. I've been spending my time homeschooling, and now my daughter's in college and she's, acing it there. And I'm stepping back out in the speaking arena, and I just don't even know exactly all that looks like, but I know I'm going to do workshops. I'd like to do retreats here in the Smokies and invite kids in for a weekend and just immerse them in this and find their gifts and their talents and teach them these things so that they can go away from here with their ideas ingrained inside them, and then have parent conferences afterwards, teach parents how to help them do what they're going to do. So,
that's wonderful. That's really, really inspiring. Thank you so much for that work that you're doing. It warms my heart. It does. And I love your accent, so that always helps.
Can I say one more thing for just a second? Because I forgot this, and I think this is something important for older generations, even if you don't have children. Now, something I'm doing with this new college book coming out, I'm going back to my old high school. I'm going to give a free ebook to every single senior in my class. You know what? There's grandmas out there. There's grandpas out there. There's older adults. There's, professionals that want to somehow empower this generation. They could go adopt their high school and do something like this and get this information to them. So they could be a link into getting it into their schools. I mean, we could blanket, the country could blanket the world, the whole generation with something like that. And so I'm thinking on bigger scales now than I used to. It's not just like, I'm going to go do a little workshop anymore. It's like, how do I influence the whole world and everything into every language and all these crazy things.
That's what it's about, making a change, right? So.
Right.
Well, Liz, where can everybody find out more about you and your work, your books, everything that you're doing?
Well, the books are on timetobegreat.com. I have a new thing setting up that's lizfranklin.com that's not even finished yet because the whole Mama Liz thing happened, and I got to fit that in there somehow, and I don't even know how to do it yet. But if you want to email me, it's liz@lizfranklin.com, and we'll tell you about what's going on and keep you posted on everything that's coming.